Throughout the choice of the creative conversations, though, I think it would be fair to say that the catalyst really lies in the people that have been invited to be the keynote speakers throughout. And we've been really, really privileged throughout all of the conversations to have some of the most well-respected people internationally, and that's something that's really, really helped the conversations move forward. In terms of the speaker this evening, I have to say that I feel truly honoured to introduce Stephen, because he's somebody that I think who talks about transforming learning. So it's not ICT as a bolt-on, but truly understands the difference actually that it can make to transforming learning, fully understands about the future that lies ahead and how different that might be, and really appreciates how creativity is actually intrinsic. And that's something from a musical background myself. I really love to see that coming through. And the more creative approaches that we can actually embed into our classroom practice, I think will show that we're moving along the right lines. So I'm sure that you all want to join me in welcoming Stephen. So if you can please put your hands together, provide a warm welcome to Stephen Heppell.
Just you check off, mate.
Golly gosh. Well, I love the idea of a conversation, so I want you to interrupt, and I'll pause to make you interrupt. And if you don't interrupt, I'll say outrageous things until you do. You know where I am. I'm a professor in UCJC in Madrid and in Bournemouth. In Bournemouth, I'm in the media school, Centre of Excellence in Media Practice, so a big part of my life lives in cinema futures. I'm a BAFTA counsellor, was a trustee. I'm a granddad, which is nice. It's really nice, unexpectedly nice. Should have been a warning, I think. And crucially, I've got projects all around the world which we're going to look at. And best of all, I mean, here we are in the beginning of really the best 10 years of learning, I think, of our lives. I can't imagine a better time than this. Turn on the telly, it's full of people learning to bake, sing, dance, so, you know, learning. People interviewed after sporting events. They don't say, how does it feel then, David? You know, they say, tell us how you got it, what did you do, talk about your process. You know, it's a learning decade, probably a learning century, maybe a learning millennium, but better than we've ever seen. And yes, I mean, clearly there are problems with learning. 2.2 billion children in the world, and they don't all have the learning that you have here. Far from it. You know. Half of them don't even get past 10 or 11. And of course, the amount of time we spend in learning is quite interesting. If we look here, I'll get the boring figures in early because, you know, well, it's still awake really, but, you know, back in the Victorian days, people lived forever, they thought, but they were dead at 50, really. And they were in school till 14 or so. Now you're in school till 18, you're going to make 110, probably. You know, certainly the first child to live to 200 has probably been born. And we're fitting in an extra 4 years of learning. So clearly, learning has to go beyond our institutions, and our institutions have got some challenges. I don't think any government that I'm working with, I'll work with any government that's not genuinely evil, I'll work with. It's quite a short list these days, but I'll work with them, and not many of them, I think, will fund full-time school education through to 27 or so. It doesn't seem very likely. So I think we've got to think hard about this. Some of our major institutions seem to be confused. I'm a professor in 3 universities, really, because I'm still emeritus in Anglia Ruskin. But do you know another industry that only celebrates when its clients leave? I mean, it's a bizarre thing, you know. I'll finish my degree. Great, get your parents. We'll have a cheese and wine party. And you'll never hear from us again, except when we ask for money. You know, and that won't be often. You know. So there's some real issues. I'm building schools around the world, and the schools are excellent. The children stop being naughty. They come up against the Youth Justice Service less. They become better parents, become later parents. But the police force don't say, thank you very much, Stephen, we've only got to have one police car driving around the neighbourhood now, so here's the money for a minibus. And the child services don't say, crikey, we haven't had pregnant teenagers around here for a couple of years. By the way, some of the youngest mums I've worked with, some of the best mums ever. It's not a judgmental thing. It's just they delay parenting because they have other options. But I don't find the National Health Service rushing around and lending me the money for the midwife they've saved, or none of this joins up in any shape or form. So I just want to put on the table there are some issues, and no issues bigger probably than this one. Kids around the world have become targets in a way that never happened in our lifetime. And who expected this? I mean, I'm still shocked that people leaving bombs don't mind blowing themselves up. We used to assume they'd leave a bomb and run away. Now they blow themselves up. Unexpected, but attacking schools. 141 children in Pakistan. They were in the exam room, do you remember? The three terrorists waited in the exam room. Only had Kalashnikov rifles, I say only. There weren't machine guns, and they killed 141 of the 200-odd children in the room. And northeast Nigeria, girls kidnapped and never seen again, never will be. And in Afghanistan and in Syria and in everywhere, kids have become targets. And I don't think we can protect them. I think America has done a really poor job at protecting Dunblane. I mean, just crikey. It was almost the beginning of it, wasn't it, I think? But suddenly that's a real issue. So I can't see the future of education being parachuting Western schools into, the Oprah Winfrey School in Africa. I'm sure that's very kind and generous, and she's a lovely lady, no doubt. But how is that going to work? Having 5,000 kids apply for 500 places, and then having everybody else resent them in any way, Boko Haram means stop sending your kids to Western schools. Pretty rough, slightly rough translation, but you know what I mean. So it's a really interesting time, and it's not a time to sit on our laurels or think we've got it about right, or to finesse it a little bit. It's time to move forward, and that graph only goes to 2011, and you know now that the graph would be off the page if I had the latest data. So with that in mind, let's put a bit of context onto this. Let's go to universities for help. This is my mate, Pete Bradshaw, the Open University. Just happened to tweet this to me just the other week. On the 5th of January, he sent this message, which you can see. He's a bit depressed. He did the research in 2009 and finished in 11, wrote it up in 2012, sent it off for submission to a journal. What's the average readership of a PhD in the United Kingdom, do you know? 1.8. That's basically, that's somebody and your mum didn't finish it, So, sad but true. I have a lot of PhD students. But they find other ways to get their message out. And so he sent it off, and they said, we'd love to publish your valuable work, Pete. Could you make some amendments? It took them 2 years to request the amendments. Well, you can imagine what a big job it was. They were busy, saying goodbye to the customers. And finally, he heard, you can just see last little message, update, article accepted for publication. Tick, tock, tick, the clock is still ticking. And good news, it'll be published in 2016. So, but now just map onto that technology change from the iPhone at the beginning through the iPad, through a mass of other tablets, Tesco Huddle, goodness knows what else. And 2014, we're, crikey, 2015, isn't that the Apple Watch coming out? And what are we going to have by 2016? Wearable tech, the Google Glass had come and gone as a development project, Interesting, lots of fun. I enjoy mine. Quite well, we'll come back to that. But that had all happened in the time it took him to finish the research and get published. So I don't think that's going to be the way, do you? No, I don't. And time is an interesting thing. I sail this. This is where I live this time of year. I live on a boat, which is nice. It's lovely. Going to sleep with the water lapping on the hull. And in the summer, it's a race boat. Here it is, racing. This is the finish of a race. With the boat on the left, we won. Otherwise, I wouldn't have kept the picture. That little flag there is the finishing line. So it's all really close. The boat is built in 1907, so 108 years old. I was talking to some primary school kids a little while back. They said, "Did you buy it new?" I said, "Thanks." But what you get from that is a mixture of the craft of sailing these boats. We still have to fish for oysters 1 weekend a year. Our first year in the boat, we were hopeless. I've got Olympic sailors on the team. We were just rubbish. And we went off and talked to the wise old souls, who had sailed the boats for I talked to the chap who was on the boat when it sunk in 1986, and so on. We learned a lot from them, and we mixed with that technology we had at our disposal, the data mapping, the computers, laptops, and so on. And now the boat's flipping quick. We won the race, And I think somehow we've got to move forward respecting the craft of making learning happen, but we've got to know when to put things away, and we've got to know when to move forward, and that's quite a tough thing. Let me take you to. Where should we go? Let's go to Spain. So I've been really interested in getting children to build better learning. And why kids? A, there's a lot of them, 2.2 billion, so they've got a few ideas. B, when we ask them to be researchers, they go and look up stuff. They go to Pinterest, which has probably got the best collection of other people's classrooms on the planet. There's about 10,000 pictures of other people's classrooms. You want to make over your own space. Shall I go to an architect or to Pinterest? I think I'll go to Pinterest. And they ask people why it worked. I see what you've done with your furniture. Why? Kids are always evidence-led. They've done opinion. You ask a teenager to design would you mind designing my classroom? Come up with some ideas. They'll paint the thing black and put up some mirror tiles and maybe a bar, and they're done. You ask them for their research, and they'll do extraordinary things. So we knew how engaged kids were. I've known that since the days of Teachers TV. I helped set up Teachers TV. This is some of the unpublished data from Teachers TV. We're looking here at 2007. These are the children who watched Teachers TV. And the data is in 100,000s. So you can see if I go to, autumn half term, 441,000 children were watching programs about how to teach by teachers for teachers. So have you seen that program on maths? Would you see that program on maths? Could it be soon? They were, of course, the bonus of all this was reflective practice. Kids reflect, the literature of reflective practice is taller than me if it came from the floor, but not much of it refers to children. But, when they think about how can we do this better, of course, that metacognition cuts in of them saying, I see what you're doing that now, miss, that's proper clever, and you sure you should be doing that, They become, critical and constructive and lead you forward, and that can be pretty exciting. If I look at there's a group of children, had the pleasure of setting up a school down on the south coast of England, slightly scary experience because my grandchildren go to the school. So nothing focuses your mind more than it had better be pretty blinking good, otherwise I'll be in trouble with my daughter. I don't mind the grandchildren. So before we bought the technology in, we thought we'd better ask the kids. And so here are some of the very wise, sort of 13, 14-year-olds asking some reception kids, tell us about your dream technology. We haven't bought any yet. We've got all these, BMW suit-clad. I was hesitating to say suit-clad because you scrubbed up so good for tonight, but, mohair-clad, executives coming to sell us loads of stuff. We'd better talk to the students first about what they want. And you can see rather amusingly here, the kids are introducing the task and then they're Skyping to other schools and saying, what did you buy? What worked? Is it any good? I was just talking with, where's Alan gone? I was just talking with Alan today to some kids in D&G, and we're saying, if you were advising other people, they'd all got iPad minis, what would you advise? They're full of wisdom about charging and battery life and apps and ownership. They use them every day. They know this stuff. So then, because they get down on the floor and start designing and start thinking, and by this point you can't tell the big kids from the little kids because they're all completely engaged in the task. I tell you, I don't know. I'm not watching it. You can watch it.
Okay.
That's what it's for, And they presented their dream technology. Look how worried they are. How focused. So I said to these two, talk me through this. I didn't say, why has it only got 9 keys? I said, talk me through this. And they said, well, the safest place in our bags is our lunchbox. And if we take the drinks out, that's how we're going to get these computers home safely. It's pretty wise, wasn't it? It's quite, And this lad, Isaac, said, I want my computer to know who I am. I want it to be my computer. Specifically, he said, I wanted it to know that I like sausages. And I wanted to check that there are sausages, Now, you wouldn't, having heard those two, give them all identical computers because his computer wouldn't know. You'd say to him, this is your computer, Isaac, put on it what you want, you load your own apps, make your own choices. You want to do stop frame animation, you want to do movies. What are you using down there? It's hard to tell from here. You make your choices. And of course, we want computers that are robust and small and so on. And what was interesting, of course, when the salesman came knocking, we had to say to them, I hope you've read the submission from the children, because they'll be shortlisting, and if you get past them, we'll be seeing you later. Good luck. And the kids said about one of the smooth-talking snake oil salesmen, you may have to edit that. They said, I asked him a question and he answered it to my teacher, not to me. If he's not listening to me now, when I'm interviewing him, he ain't going to listen to me in the future. Just such. The kids are sensible about all this. So in Madrid, we had a bit of fun with asking kids to design their own learning space. And the kids they'd already spent some time chatting to other kids, and on the door of their space is this sign, which I'm rather proud of. Not because it mentions my name. That's Project Heppell. That's not Spanish for professor, in case you were wondering. I will be teaching in Spanish as we go. But of course they put it in English because they know the world's watching. And it's a permanent sign, and it says, under construction. Our classroom will never be finished. We will continually iterate. We'll learn new ideas. We'll keep improving it. And of course, that's what they did. And what did they do? Well, they did some pretty cool stuff. Let's have a look at it. So here is the space. This is the day they opened it. They had a colossal budget. I mean, I threw money at the project, 500 euros for a 3-year project. That's across the 3 years, not 500 each year. Not profligate, And that's really necessary. You get creativity from tight budgets. You just get greed from unlimited. But what would you like? Everything, bring it on. What would you like? You've got 500 euros. Okay, that needs some thought. And it needs some imagination. And we're going to have to make the stuff because we can't afford to buy it. So they knew that they liked to stand sometimes and sit others. So the table heights are all different. They knew that the hollow surfaces gave intimacy and the convex surfaces gave gregariousness. They knew that it would be they dreamt of having one of those interactive surfaces, but they've only got 500 euros. They built the tabletops themselves. They had to learn the jigsaw. They haven't quite learned how to stick the edges on, as you can see. How did they make the surfaces high enough? They found an old locker, put it on its side, put the surface on top. They interviewed each other to see, where do you sit when you're reading at home? And curiously, no child said, when I'm at home, I like to get a chair from the kitchen and take it up to my bedroom because I can't get into a novel with a properly upright back, you know. I've understood that if I rock my chair back, my reading eyes will fall out, you know. So, curiously, nobody said that. They said I sit on a beanbag and I sit on a sofa. So that black thing there is a cupboard they nicked from the PE department, on its side with 3 inches of foam rubber on top and a blanket thrown over it. The cloth they bought it in Madrid market. They spent about a week moving their cloth drapes around because they knew their teacher's eye line was pretty important, but they knew they wanted a semblance of usness. They wanted to zone the space for different activities. And they loved the idea of a huge writable surface. They wanted to be able to do their work on the wall where they could all see rather than their exercise books where nobody could see, because they heard from other classrooms how fast, you know, if I'm writing on the wall and you're not writing on the wall, it's pretty blinking obvious that you're having a lazy day, and if my writing's duff and you know what I'm doing wrong, you're going to help. So, you know, transparency is your friend in learning. I mean, take that away. Secrecy is the enemy of great learning, of course. Privacy, you know, transparency comes with mutuality, collegiality, sharing, ingenuity, of course, all those things. Privacy is a wall. So, you know, they did cool stuff. And it was a pretty nice space, really. I was quite excited when they launched it and opened it. And of course, they got this from their 500 euros. They took a board marker pen. They ripped out the inside, stuck some circuitry in it. These are, you know, 12-year-old kids, so they're pretty sharp. They found a Wii controller, stuck it on the side of the old projector they don't use anymore on the ceiling, and now when you write on the surface with the pen talks to the Wii controller talks to the computer talks to the projector. You have an interactive surface, and of course YouTube was their friend. You know, they weren't electronic engineers, they were kids who know how to search. Go to YouTube, search for how do I make my own interactive surface, rather than can I have £20,000 for an interactive surface? Please go. And of course, they didn't stop there. So that's pretty exciting. But we didn't stop there. We got a bit carried away, and I thought, I wonder what would happen if we gave the kids no money at all, because what had happened in Madrid when they launched the project was they gave us back 100 euros with a great smile. You know, they said, by the way, we didn't need all the money. So here we are in Catalonia, and the kids were trying to do it for a budget of nuppence, really. And so they liked the idea of mood lighting, which they achieved by painting light bulbs, and worked all right. You know, they thought it would be quite nice to have. Could you see this bit where I'm standing is sort of curtains, and can you see the ceiling is quilted? They found some old cloth around the back of the stage, stapled it to the ceiling. So they wanted that end to be quiet, and rather like rather like being underwater. They sort of sent their quiet reading end was an underwater end, hence the fish on the wall and so on. You know, they liked the idea of different coloured chairs, because they knew that if you're doing collaborative engagement, you know, doing team-based stuff, sometimes you want to work on your own, and it's hard to say, my best friend, but I don't want to work with you today. I can't say that to your face, but if I sit on a blue chair, you know. But if the chairs are all grey, how the bleep am I going to know, you know? So they knew that coloured chairs mattered, because they taught. So where do they get coloured chairs? They said to parents, anybody got any old paint? You know? And all parents have old paint, you know. Grandparents have sheds full of old paint, you know. So they learned about primer, they painted it. They designed a table that was a bit like a, what's that game you play in the slices of, almost any game, actually. I was thinking of Trivial Pursuit. I was thinking of. But they like the idea you sit together, but occasionally you take your table away and work on it separately, you know. And best of all, they like the idea of little three-sided spaces here. You can, I think, see just behind the head teacher there. Can you see that three-sided space there? It's made from chicken wire and brown paper. You go and sit in it for a little bit of intimacy and quiet. But interestingly, you'll notice the screen on the wall is made from cardboard, as were 6 of their 8 iPads. Because they wanted iPads, but they ain't got any money at all, so they had cardboard iPads. And they used them for queuing. So, you know, I've got number 6, soon I'll have number 5, eventually I'll have number 2, which is a real one, you know, which is quite nice, you know. And they wanted a stage for presentation, they wanted interesting furniture, most of their sitting is down on the floor, as you can see. It was a pretty cool project, and the slightly scary thing was it worked. So why would a space, and the most money we spent really, we had to resurface the floor, because it's a health and safety problem, but that wasn't their budget. So why did it work? The answer was they were role-playing future education. And it turned out that role-playing future education was better, of flipping course it was, than present education, because the bar is so low. Going to a class when the children are all sitting facing in the same direction, the sort of teacher's power zone in the front with board stuff, you know. And teachers need to talk to their kids face to face a lot, maybe 10 minutes an hour. But why would you design the whole space around those 10 minutes? You know, kids are collaborating, sharing, swapping, reading, zoning, and these kids fully understood that and built a space to match. You want to hear from the kids, of course. You don't want to just listen to me. So let's hear from the kids first of all. Let's hear from. I just said to them, I'm going to be talking to other people about this. Give me some advice. Let's just hear from one of them.
Something else that's really important is investigating first, because getting new ideas from other places that have already done projects like this or similar things, it's very important, because then after researching, you get your own ideas, which then you can apply to your own space, and that's something very, very important.
So it's straight out. Talk to other people, look at their ideas, do the research, find out what works, bring the ingredients home, create a local recipe, which will always be unique, but build it from tested ingredients mostly. You know. Pop in a couple of fresh ideas. Here's the teacher talking, because, Michael is a hero of mine, and by the way, isn't their English good for Spanish kids? I'll just throw that in. How's your Spanish? Okay. That's, Teachers watching this are going to say, that's all very well, mate. What's it like to teach?
Primarily motivation, ownership, engagement. I think are 3 key words. Motivation is difficult to achieve, and I think as the students get older, we're talking about 7th, 8th grade, students feel that it's their space. They feel that the progress is theirs. They like being in the space because they've had voice and vote. Therefore, they're much more motivated to conjugate verbs, write sentences, graph sentences.
Do stuff they need to do. Yeah.
Exactly, in that space.
And that ownership. And I mean, I was listening carefully as they presented, and I don't think anybody said I. They always said we, and now the whole morning.
Quite honestly, the first year, maybe we didn't reach that point. I think every project has a process.
Well, I'll talk about that a bit, because, this is, people watching this will say, crikey, it's great to dream, but, I'll never reach there. And this is a pretty cyclical thing.
Absolutely. The important thing was starting. Not really sure what the destination was going to be. And trusting the students, by far. If the project isn't student-led, I would dare to say that it isn't worthwhile.
That's a pretty powerful statement. I'm bored on 3 years of experience. Michael was reluctant in the first year to believe that the kids could be trusted with this task, but the hero is stuck in there. And by the way, we're in the classroom in another part of the school, which has also been made over as a result of the kids' work. So the kids are spreading like a virus all around the school with their ideas and their work, and that works really well. Let's go to let's go to Silkeborg. So here in Silkeborg, this starts to get fun because the kids on the screen there are in West London, Lambton School, where they, I think, were one of the very first to properly make over their space. It's Juliet Heppell, my daughter's school. Go to iBookstore, search for Heppell and Learning. You'll see her iBook, which is free. You can look at all the data from her 7-year research project looking at how the kids have improved. But those kids, of course, can't now wait to chat to the kids in Denmark, not least because the kids in Denmark are quite gorgeous as far as the boys were concerned. So the girls in Denmark said, wow, these like handsome, tall, very black boys, wow. And the boys in Lambton said, blimey, so they're babes, I think was the quote, you know. So here we got kids flirting about the design of their learning environments, which is pretty cool. Remember that the kids up there on the screen in the left-hand corner, having made over their classroom, famously, you'll know the story, broke into their school at Easter because they didn't want to go home. And teacher realised from Facebook they were in their class. It's the Easter holidays, there's nobody in. The school's locked up. The kids are sitting in the classroom doing GCSE revision. And why? Because it's our classroom. Why wouldn't we? You know? And by the way, broke into the staff room to get the key to unlock them because they weren't going to damage their door. Of course. So here they are advising this lot who have got this space to make over. And it's it's a pretty hideous space. It's very Danish, you know. It's orange. Most of Denmark was painted orange in the 70s. Now it's all painted grey, 50 Shades of Grey and counting. So they thought, how can we make this up? Had they given this to their local authority, they would have painted it grey. What they do, you know. But the kids had done their research, and what they produced was this, which is kind of nice. And you can see some of the many details here. They got rid of projectors, so the best quality light was coming in everywhere. Flat screens all over the place. They have an amphitheatre here for presenting and conversations with, by the way, a projector pointing to the floor so they can have a kind of illuminated floor. Every child made one of those boxes. They couldn't buy them. There's lots of kids, £1 on each. You know, how long could it take? Not long. Graffiti artist in from the local town to decorate the walls. Would you mind coming and graffitiing our wall? I know nothing about graffiti. No, honestly, we've seen you. We've got the video. Okay, I'll come. You know. Couldn't afford to plaster it. And some really cute features they knew too about those tables with hollow sides, convex and concave. You can see the viral way kids are passing this stuff around themselves in a wonderful, wonderful way. They're building the stalls now, so those are temporary stalls. One of my favourite things here was the Skype bar up against the windows, where they were so comfortable with Skyping to other schools, they wanted that left permanently online. You know, I'll go to the Skype bar, that one's connected to this school, this one to that one. So, you know, when you sit and think about, as a group of teachers, how will you hit those PISA tests of 2017, which you expect your kids to do, not just the collaborative problem solving that was added this year, but the online communication and selection that you need for 2017. How are you going to do that? Well, it's been part of the natural ebb and flow of your classroom. I mean, I want to, Laurie and I want to have a Skype chat about something. By the way, mate, while you're there, do you fancy doing a meteorology project? I've got a homework, perfectly natural thing. And they loved it, so they built huge Skype. And by the way, they did a survey, and the survey, they liked writable surfaces, they liked glass. They had seen that in so many schools. But when they surveyed their teachers and themselves, they said, where are the places where we're in the most trouble with our teachers? Teachers don't want to be cross. They don't want to be in trouble. Let's design it out. And one of the big problems was running in the corridors. Famously, it's a big corridor. They ran fast. So they had a big think, and they designed a running lane. So the green, you have to run. Doesn't teacher, visitor, minister, the picture of the minister, anybody put your foot on the green, you're off like a scalded cat. And the teachers, of course, said, well, perhaps that should be one way, health and safety. The kids are like, we know how to run without crashing, You think I'm going to run right around the school to go to that room, You think again, Buster. Well, they said that in Danish, obviously. And by the way, they cared about inclusion, and the wheelchair kids said, hey, count us in. When we head that round, we've got to be travelling to really get up the stairs. So it's a playful space. It's a space of learning. And what's interesting about it, of course, is it's a place of learning that others would learn from as well. If I pop off into Telefonica in Madrid, one of Spain's best places, what do I find inside? I find a place that looks like one of my schools. It's got writable surfaces, it's got nooks, it's got screens on the wall, it's got no projectors. They've got table tennis and table football too. But do you recognise that space? That's the space from Silkeborg. Just copied straight in. Wealthiest company in Spain, learning how to do this stuff from kids. Interestingly, so companies are seeing, I think, the value of our kids. Every company in Scotland would have a mission statement that said, I'm a learning organisation, me, us. Well, I haven't got a clue how to learn, but we do learning pretty well. So there is a chance to do quite an interesting conversation. Companies know how to do training. Some of you will be in companies. There's a bloke in the basement with a filing cabinet full of video discs in charge of training. But training ain't learning. Learning for the unexpected. Why is creativity? Why is ingenuity? Why is playfulness so much an important part of learning? Because it presents you with the unexpected. Because, when I'm doing something with another, let's have a look at a moment of play. Let's go to somewhere scary. I think you need to be scared at this point. Here is Silkeborg. Here are primary children. This is the trees they're up are on the central reservation of the dual carriageway that goes past the school. So I was a bit taken aback by that, really, and the school said, but we teach climbing trees, That's what we do. Kids have got to know how to do stuff like that, And they do. Here's the school, they do outdoor learning. They get taught to climb a tree. And when you've got the hang of it, they take the ladder away and say, okay, Buster, get yourself down. Here's lunch in 10 minutes, So other people's learning is unexpected. Other people's norms and values are surprising. The world your children are going into is full of the most unexpected things. The biggest surprises. Look, let's take a moment. I got asked by our government in Whitehall, I feel I have to stand to attention at this point. They said to me this, they said, Stephen, will you do this for us, mate? They said, we don't know what to do with technology and learning, really. We would like you to empower our teachers and learners. This is Michael Gove, David Willett, Matthew Hancock. You will have an opinion about their politics. For sure, me too. But this was a very good ask. They said, and can you enable innovation to really happen? I don't want kids stopping writing, kids copying from a wall, into exercise books. Oh, now they're doing it onto an iPad. This is not the way forward, What might we do that's new and different? And they said, can we do it with the smart devices that are in all our hands, in all our pockets? And can we make learning deeper and faster? Of course we can. I'll do that for you, especially because they said 3 times. Michael Gove said 3 times it needs to be fun. He's a dad, just remember. And his kids are saying, come on, Dad, sort it out. This is boring. Of course, the first thing we did was as a group, it's a big group. You can find this ETAG report, etag.report, the easiest URL in the world. People still try and put W's in front of it and things after it, but etag.report, and you'll find this graphic there in the forward. So we just looked at everybody's white papers. We looked at technology horizon scanning. I do technology horizon scanning. And we said, look, we can be certain that by 2025, this is what it looks like. Absolutely, no equivocations. We didn't put in the crazy stuff. My Google Glass does simultaneous translation. I wear these in restaurants in Spain. I look at the menu in Spanish. I see it in English. The typeface on the page is the same typeface. It does it all for me. I was sailing the boat back, up the East Coast on Saturday, wearing these, looking at the skies. Every star was labelled. Every star. It's magical. And I could still see where I was sailing, So cool stuff. But we didn't mention simultaneous translation. We just did the obvious stuff. And let's just step through it really quickly. Up in the blue corner at the top, learning is going global. Kids will learn connected to other kids. It's an entitlement. You might argue about how big it is, but there it is, Your kids will not hold down a job if they can't work with others. They won't even get a job as a granddad if they can't Skype in at breakfast time or FaceTime in for birthdays or do whatever it is that we do. And down the bottom, it's going to be their technology, not yours. It's their phones, their glasses, their implants, their watches, their everything. Do you know a school with a class head of mobile phones? So that was the line, wasn't it? That was the line. We all had identical typewriters, BBC Bs or whatever, the same network, the same... even schools give out their identical iPads with identical apps on, but nobody does identical mobile phones. So there's the line, absolutely right there. Beyond that is theirs. Before that, we tried to control them. How could we? And we're well past that line now. One of the questions you might want to ask me is, how young should children have mobile phones? And I'll answer that if you ask it. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, we're going to know a lot more about learning. We're going to know heaps more about learning. Just tiptoe into that space for a moment. I have this Learnometer project with one of my PhD students. We're having a lot of fun with it. We've got kids running around their schools, measuring their schools for learning. One day in the life of our school, where's the best light, where's the best sound, where are the best rooms. Let's do proper sound comparatives. You can see it's technology, data, pedagogy. They measured at 9:30, 11:15, 12:50, 4 o'clock. Measured everything. They measured the staircase, which was really noisy. We'll have a look at it. And they measured the teacher's room. They said to the teachers, you think you can prepare for us with a sound level of 96 decibels? You've got another thing coming, sort yourselves out. Get your noise levels down. It's kids telling their teachers to be quiet so the teachers can teach them better. And in the stairwells, of course, the kids were running up and down the stairs. The girls on the left are videoing their feet to see if they can invent a quieter way of walking on the stairs. The boy at the top is holding a decibel meter on his iPad to see what the quietest way is. Next step, Raspberry Pi bolted to the rail, flashes red if you're too noisy. And some of the noisy rooms, they said, blimey, they said, look, the chairs in this room are ridiculously noisy. Let's make them quieter by putting tennis balls on their feet, So kids love all this stuff, and we've been having a lot of fun. But let me give you one bit of scary data. I've shown this to heads earlier today. This is CO2 in a traditional classroom. As your first day on the job in the new place, you've got classrooms with 27 kids in, the door's shut because teachers like to shut the door, and 27 children. Oh, come on in. You don't have to sit there. As long as you've got a note. 27 children, and these are kids who emit fumes from every orifice in their body, basically, But coming out of here is the dangerous one. It's CO2. And these are the CO2 levels that 27 kids produce in a class with the door shut. That's break. You can see how high that level is. That's already you'd be feeling nausea and you'd be feeling uncomfortable. Your learning would be slipping away at that point. And you go out for break, here's break, and then you come back in and stay till lunch, and here's lunch. And look, by lunchtime, you're up to over 4,000 parts per million. That's phonia lawyer levels. And every kid in every class with the door shut in a single room is suffering that level of outrage. I was saying to the heads today, you might want to try this with colleagues. How do you get people to open doors? Well, in the perfect world, you knock the wall down, the doors in. That works quite well. But failing that, just take the doors off. But failing that, my best trick is say to colleagues, as of Easter, if you shut the door on your room, it's a cry for help. We need to know when you need intervention. Shutting your door will be that signal. So, the minute you shut your door, somebody will burst in and save you. Every time you shut the door, somebody will burst in and say, they stop shutting the doors real quick. So you'll have your door shut again today. Should we talk about that after school? Let's see what's going wrong. It just works really, really well. The kids are being gassed in the room. The light levels are too low. We were in, I've lost that line. We were in an examination room today where the kids regularly do their exams. The light levels in the room were 54 lux. Now, in an English prison, they evacuate the prisoners at 50. So the room was so dark, so dark. If you were doing conversations, you would not want to be less than 250 lux. If you were writing and typing, you would not want to be below 450, I think 500. Outside in Edinburgh today, it's probably about 12,000 in here right now. Do you want to know what it is in here? Do you think this is a good learning space in terms of light? Are you feeling a bit heavy-eyed? Is it all slipping away a bit? Well, let's see if that's the light that's doing it. What would you guess? So, I mean, kind of pool of light. You guys are in like a lighty bit here. And so how bright do you think the light is? These guys in front of me, got the light ponding down to 21. 21. That's kind of pedagogic waterboarding going on there. And over here, in the dark corner, well, it's a little better there, actually. I think I'm picking up some of the light reflecting from the ceiling, but there, you're sitting all down there, and you're in 35 down there. So, evacuate now for your health, But, kids in exam rooms, kids doing tests, in the dark, with the temperature too high, in a room full of CO2, how the hell can we get them to perform to their best? And all I'm saying is we are going to know more about this. We know more about this now. Look, I feel it's a moment for some questions, because questions include why are we torturing children, and how the hell did we expect them to do well when we put them in rooms which were sort of clearly designed to stop them doing well, although nothing more controlled than a child semi-conscious from CO2 poisoning. So let's go to questions, and we're going to kind of do a left and right thing here. So, right team, first question from you, really, and then we're over to you lot. So, and we have a roving mic, which we need because we're capturing this for people hopefully in better ventilated rooms. Yeah.
I was just wondering if you've worked in this way with groups of adults, because they're the ones that are designing the buildings, building buildings.
Yes, no, thank you for that.
The children have got answers, but maybe the adults need to go through that stage as well.
No, well, yes, I have. And actually, it's a nice little bit of irony of all that. We're in the College of Surgeons here. My very first online community was a was a group of thoracic surgeons who, this was in the 90s, but this work goes back a long way. I've been a professor for 26 years now. And they were really depressed, and they needed cheering up. And, playfulness, we know playfulness matters with little ones. But the trouble with being a thoracic surgeon is your patients die. Lung cancer is not a good prognostication. So I set up to try and cheer them up. I set up this, which I think I can possibly find fairly quickly. Here we go. I set up the World Institute of Jollyology, which was a place they could submit their research for peer review. Their research was doctor jokes, and look here, they all are. You can read a few of these. I'm sure they were tortuous jokes. I particularly like the circular saw one there, or the doctor, I'm addicted to brake fluid. Nonsense, man, you can stop any time. I mean, they're all pretty bad, you know. And there's quite a lot of them. If you go to jollyology dot pretty much anything, you'll find that list of jokes. But curiously, I get American colleges now trying to buy the jollyology domain from me almost every week, because jollyology is becoming an important part of what business schools are doing with their learning. They've realised that humour and playfulness, not because playfulness cheers you up, but because playfulness presents you with the unexpected, and that's really, really important. Of course, in Bournemouth University, we're building a whole heap of new buildings, and I'm building part of that team. The FF&E, furniture and fitment, is probably more important than the walls. You can convert to space very easily. I'm building the Faculty of Education in UCJC in Madrid, and we're building a trial. This is interesting. We're building a classroom so our teachers can be taught their undergraduate degree in a classroom that is indicative of the best classrooms. Who do you think the consultants on the project are? The kids in Madrid that build their own classrooms. So we're talking. So, you know, this, of course, you know, we all feast off each other in a nice sort of way. And as you saw in Telefonica, I have a meeting tomorrow, funnily enough, with Google to talk about learning in their spaces. And by the way, you know, Google and Samsung funded this space, which is, where is that? Yeah, here we are. I knew it was there somewhere. We, school I have on the south coast, we wanted to have a sixth form. It's a 0 to 18 school, but when we opened it to have a sixth form, we had no money for a sixth form, so we've taken over a hangar and said to the kids, if you want a sixth form, you'd have to build it. And Samsung and Google said, yeah, we'll fund that, because we want to learn about learning for older people. And, you know, the kids they've got wallpaper they colour in themselves, and one of the squares is mine. They've covered the walls with old keyboards. You can follow them on Twitter, iPackerLearn. It's a pretty cool space, you know. But interestingly here, in building their space, of course they were Skyping into Juliet and all the other schools. So these are sixth form kids Skyping into younger kids and saying, help us to design our space. You know, this is a viral change in learning, and it's cheap, and it's exciting, it's exhilarating. Okay, on to the you lot. I hope you've had time to think of a good question, because theirs was excellent. No pressure, but we are scoring.
Yeah, well,
that was a 7. So you could be 93 better than them. Go on, give us a question.
how bad is the CO2 in that part of the...
Oh, as you think of... Go on, you're right. But hold on for the microphone, otherwise we won't have a... Yeah. You should know
One
that.
of the things that I've become aware of through doing recordings and things is quite how bad the sound quality is in classrooms.
Shocking.
And the difference that it makes if the space is carpeted is quite
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
I seem to remember when we put the change review, we're able to say that research now tells us that carpets actually improve learning.
Yeah, and indeed with the kids, my kids all around the world that do this, we have a simple thing they do, which is to sit in a circle with different floor coverings and talk to each other with the decibel meter in front of them. And, you know, they're pretty good at talking just normally, and they try, you know, the rubber floors that look a bit like Lego bricks. They try carpet, they try Hessian, try everything, and you're right, carpet works really well. And of course, carpet works well, and the kids enjoy sitting on it, so... You know, here's what's happening all around the world, because once the kids start sitting on carpet, they start taking their shoes off. These are kids in Denmark, these are kids in Australia, these are kids in NASA, and the astronauts don't wear shoes either, who knew? And these are kids in West London, this is a BBC film crew coming in to film a programme about shoeless learning, and we had to ask them to take their shoes off. There's an irony there, you know. And this is just good stuff. It's, you know, and here we are in Scandinavia. Why would shoeless learning work? Well, the answer is I don't know. Every culture has their explanations. China thinks it's reflexology. I think it's like going home. You all take your shoes off when you go home, don't you? Yeah, I guess. Do you? Yeah, just checking, you know. With some racy boots, leave them on, I don't know. But mostly, you take your shoes off. And what we do know is 27.5% lower cleaning bills. That's significant. Half as much furniture purchased. So why half as much furniture? Because they sit on the floor. And they're comfy to sit on the floor because it's clean. So quieter, cleaner. It's really hard to be naughty with your shoes off. It's impossible to bully with your shoes off. Just can't be done. So behaviour goes up, cleaning bills go down, furniture bills disappear, sound quality's improved. What's not to like? You know, people are going crazy for shoeless learning all around the world. Look, here's the Queensland Courier designing for the future now, you know, and what do we find as a headline picture? People with their socks off, rather revoltingly, but alarmingly I'm one of them, so I can't complain. I can't complain too much, you know. What can I say? Another question. We're back over to the A team. I think their questions are coming faster, you know.
Is it not something to do as well with child... Sorry. Is it not something to do with child development, though, as well, about, you know, basically having no shoes on? Because just now I've got a child in the line school that's only 4, and part of his cognitive development, because obviously cognitive is much younger than that, as he goes around the whole school without any shoes on, and that's part of his development.
Yeah, well, I mean, I absolutely agree with that. And in India, of course, they say it's more to do with respect in the temple. But the Maori kids I work with in New Zealand, you know, come to school with no shoes, they love no shoes, it's a cultural thing, and they're pretty sharp, you know. But I'm glad you raised the cognitive thing, because I just want to raise technology and youngsters question with you, because I know you're all worrying about it. And at what age would you... So let's just work around the room. What's the youngest purchase? Who's got the youngest kid with a phone in the room? Who's got a 10-year-old with a phone in their family or close family group? Okay, who's got a 9-year-old? Who's got an 8-year-old?
How many kids have you got? You've your hands up 4 times.
It could be the same kid.
It's
It's okay, you know. Who's got a 6-year-old with a phone? Thank you. 5-year-old? Well, you're pretty much on the money. I'm saying before they go to school. So let's unpack that a little. Would you give your kids crayons before they go to school? Dear God, I hope so. I'm in the wrong place. This is a creative conversation. Would you give them Play-Doh before they go to school? Do you do it because of the cognitive development as they're doing? Of course, that's why you do it. You know, you get them drawing circles because you want pain control. They're doing, you know, baby-led weaning because you want the dexterity and you want the autonomy, and of course, you know, you don't want passive puddings being shoveled ghastly blended food. You know, you want them to be autonomous little biters. And the same is true of technology. There's nothing different about technology. The only person nodding in the room is the person who's done the wise thing. But the rest of you should be nodding. You should be running with shame to your families to buy them phones. Let's have a look at my family. And yes, I think there is. Yeah, I think there is. I think it's... I think there is. I'm not going to get sucked into the 2D, 3D because the phone itself is quite tactile and is an object, and they do things with the object, and you know, running around drawing circles in the garden with the GPS traces. Yeah, exactly. So it's not. But there is a low cut-off point, and I'm guessing Neil and Palmer, one of my PhD students, looked at children's literacy at 4 with tablets and devices and was very clear that it worked, and he went forward. So the cut-off, I guess, is probably about 2, maybe, I don't know, but maybe lower. But let's look at what happens with young kids, and you'd have the same experience of your own kids, I think. So here's my let's just take for a minute, swimming. So these are kids swimming. These are my grandchildren swimming. You all do this now. You take kids into the water. You swim with them as parents. No water wings, no, what do they call those things you put around your arms, Armbands, thank you. What do you call those bands around your arms, Of course, Thank God you're here. We put them in the water and they swim. Kids can swim. It's an innate thing, and we now know when it comes to swimming. The Piaget was wrong, hang on to that. And at this point, Louis, even he, let's see, stuffed up on his deathbed, he kind of recanted, as you know. But, so here's little Louis at 2, and Amelie, I think, must be 4 at that point, swimming up to the camera for their swimming club. And, there's no... how many of you do, how many of you got swimming kids? And, she's...
What's the force?
Just a pointer, minister now. Of course, it works. But the surprise on people's faces when they come running down, throw themselves in the pool at 2. I took Louis to Disneyland last Easter, and, he went down the slide, straight into the pond. The poor old lifeguard threw himself in with his phone, and all his radio and, rescuing Louis. Louis swimming off. And the lifeguard after me, And we said, oh, he can swim. The lifeguard was not impressed. He should have it stamped on his forehead. And of course, look, here's me learning to swim as a kid. And I was born in black and white, of course. Colour came in later, but was a bit too lively. I wasn't allowed it till 11. And I've got a whatever it is called there, Madonna's bra by the look of it. And here's here's a balance bike. You know that you put a 18-month-old baby on a bike on a slope, they can cycle. They have natural balance. We used to think, give them stabilisers, give them a dad running alongside. If you can still find the dad on the other way, give them a dad running alongside to hold the saddle. Give them anything, give them a tricycle. Poor little blighters, Give them anything to stop them cycling. But actually, it was the pedals. I bet you've got balance bikes too, haven't you? Don't buy the wooden ones. They look like they're made by Brio. Buy the bicycle ones, But they just haven't got pedals. It's the pedalling is the hard bit. It's pedalling and balancing is too much. But kids can balance. So, of course, kids could do stuff we didn't think. Of course they can use phones. Of course they can do it early. So I said to my kids, grandchildren, I said, when you can send me a text message, I'll buy you a phone. There's the deal. And so Amelie, of course, immediately sent me this text message. And, it's not the best piece of prose, but it's Welsh. Conceivably.
Alan, sorry, I need to ask you, how anxious are you getting? I'm okay. You okay?
Oh, are we? 7 minutes, I would say. Crikey, yeah, we'll be right, yeah.
Just...
What could go wrong, The plane,
There's no traffic in Edinburgh.
The plane will wait, there's no traffic, Oh, yeah, okay, thank you for that. Okay, the last thing then. But quickly, which is still 4, we're having conversations. She's trying to say excited. She knows what a selfie is now, which puts her ahead of a fair number of adults. And of course, by the time here she is at 5, started school, and we're having long and regular conversations pretty much every day. At 6, she's a 10-year-old reader. She's just... And you can see, the conversation is saying... I'm trying to impress her with the fact that my bath in the hotel's got a television set in it. And she's like, yeah, right, it's so old. Because the one thing you don't want them to be doing is watching passive television. Sitting there, glued to a television set, and doing nothing, being rewarded for passivity, flipping disaster. So buy them a phone, give them an hourglass or whatever, and say 35 minutes of sand, that's your limit per day. If you want to exceed the limit, that's fine, give me back the phone. We'll reach another deal. And and you'll be pleased with that decision. And let's just follow along a little bit, never mind the plane, So, she's got an email now. Still 5, look at the dates. She sends me emails. This is a poem about Grandad. It's at acrostic. You can follow down the front, it spells Grandad. And she still sits in the bed every night reading stories to her brother, who's now desperate to learn to read. And, she tweets to God during the Harvest Festival. Dear God, thank you for my iPad, It's not quite a Harvest Festival, but that was running live in the church behind the altar. And, World Boy Day, she turns up as Mildred Heppell and has a great time. And she's still a geeky kid too. She still loves to wear the Google Glass and to wear the Oculus Rift and all the other things, So, that's what they're like with crayons and potato prints and plasticine and everything else too. And she'll put her phone down and leave it on the table and go and do something else for a week before she picks it up. If you totemize it, say you can't have it until you're 12 or 8 or 9, you will not get it out of their hands again, and they'll put down everything else. You want them to be creative with every damn tool in front of them, every Raspberry Pi, every banana, every connector, every thing, every bit of conductive Play-Doh. You want them to be creative, more than creative actually. You want them to be ingenious with those things. And ingenuity, I think, is where we need to go with our creativity, usefully. So look, let's pause. I really do have to go and get on a plane, but I will answer this last question. Chance to redeem yourself, B team.
Stephen, this is about creativity and developing creative learners. In Scottish comprehensive schools and local authorities, a lot of decisions about technology and classroom design have moved over to corporate, and the desire is to lock stuff down and to standardise, to provide the same for everybody. How do you achieve that kind of cultural shift strategically in local authorities?
I think two ways. I mean, we've had this before, of course, but I don't think a local authority ever tried to standardise bicycles. Say, you've got to come to school on the same bike, or everybody's got to have a chopper, or whatever. And so I think there are places where, and although there are schools that have mend your bike clubs, they haven't got somebody in charge of bikes or transport. It's just get to school on your bike somehow, and if you're not there on time, you'll be in trouble. But I don't care if you come in your mum's 4x4, a bike escape, or a toboggan, they're all going to work. So I think there are places where we've just got to say, turn up and do learning. And what makes the difference is the data. The data in the schools that have embraced technology and have trusted the children to make the judgments about good learning. And the schools have said, you know what, we can't do better learning for children, but we can do better learning with children. Those schools are, my Mark Oliphant College, which, let's take a moment to look at some of the bits of Mark Oliphant College. Here it is in South Australia, and Mark Oliphant, tough area. It's a place with very little number, so we have number trees all around the place. Every pillar challenges you for number. There is no room 9, there's a square root of 81 room, you've really got to work hard to find your way around the school. The stairs teach you numbers and language. They've got kids running around the park doing GPS Christmas trees with their phones, So let's look at the data from there. It's been open 3 years, and we opened with an amalgamation of other schools. At the end of our first year, 3% of our kids went to university, 3. And this Christmas, which is the end of our third year, a number bigger than 3 went. You'll be thinking, he wouldn't be telling us this if it wasn't a good number. It was 37%, which is way above the national average. And, those sort of numbers are remarkable. The kind of last thing, never mind that flipping plane, but let's just take a moment. In Australia, I've been given this university to turn into a school. And they've said, come on, mate, show us how good it can be. And I've said, okay, I'll do it. But the school has to be these things. And so we've given up a university to turn it into a school that's all this stage, not age, birth through to anything. I'm going to have kids graduating from this school before 18 with a university degree in their back pocket and no fees. Or 1 year of a university degree and only 2 years of fees or whatever. There's no, I'm not going to make them stop at 11. I'm not going to say, Kids join hands together, all step forward at the same time. Hang on a minute, wait for Bob. I'm not going to do the Piagetian madness. I'm going to say to the kids, how good do you want to be? How fast can you go? Can you help the others to keep up? My boat it's got a big mast, and there's a nice little picture here of my granddaughter looking up. She saw that mast for the first time, and she is in awe of how tall it is. You can see on her little face, it's like, flipping heck, Grandad. That's a big mast. That's where you are. Look up. Say to yourself, how good can our kids be? Never mind somebody trying to put lock and block. Lock and block is giving way to embrace and assure. But, lock and block will only go when you can be assuring about this. Every half the schools on the planet have got phones out on their desks. How are they doing it? 3 simple rules. Rule 1, if you bring it, put it on the desk, screen up. Such a simple rule. Number 2, if you bring it, be prepared to share it. So no more bullying, because my mate is going to know. Rule 3, if you brought it, the least the school might do, give you something useful to do with it. The devil makes work for idle thumbs, you know all that. So these are simple rules, but how high, I do not know how good our kids can be. But I do know they could graduate a hell of a lot earlier than they do now. And around the world, we're in that race. But anyway, why wouldn't we give them the best we possibly could? Look, I've really got to go. The plane.
And if we may, just before you do, trying to sum up loads of themes that we've had through this. The biggest theme out of today is courage, not compromise.
Absolutely.
And that's what we've had remarkably, Stephen, today, is a commitment to courage and not compromise. And it's courage in the face of uncertainty, not risk or danger. And that willingness to believe, which is absolutely massive. I was with Tim Brighouse this morning, as you know, and we spoke about that. And one of Tim's watchwords is the demand for unwarranted optimism. And your point this afternoon is that the optimism isn't unwarranted. What we need is not the fulfilling of potential, the redefining of potential, because we have no idea of what capacity is. And it's the courage in believing that there is not a lid on achievement which must be reached. It's the belief that there is a lid on achievement which must be raised. And that's what you've done today. And changing and redefining the nature of achievement in that sense, I think, remarkable. And the other thing which has been wonderful about today, and you should pack up while I'm singing your praises, because I'm sure you've heard this shit before. But the other thing that goes around that is that willingness to reduce it to the simple rules and the simple basics. And some really straightforward ideas. And we compensate and damage learning and education through our failure to grasp simple solutions. What the hell is wrong with take your shoes off? And instead, what have we got? We've got referral forms coming out our anuses and our orifices and every other part of us. We've got structures and strategies that we use to avoid finding solutions. And what we need to do, and I loved it when you did it. I loved it when you did it today, when you talked about looking up and seeing the height of the mast. I just thought that was brilliant and beautiful, and we don't do it often enough. And what we do is we stand in fear of our own potential, and we stand in blindness to the potential of our children. And your follow-up lesson for everybody in the room, if you haven't already done it, go and see Pride, the story about lesbians and gays support the minors. Go and see it, get the DVD, watch it, and I know that I'm a sentimental old lefty, and no apology for that, but the glorious moment in it where a woman in the club in Wales, in the miners' welfare, begins to sing on her own. And she sings the song Bread and Roses, which some of you may know, a song about women in protest and marching. It was International Women's Day last week. As we come marching, marching in the beauty of the day, 1,000,000 darkened kitchens, 1,000 mill lofts grey, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we come marching, marching, we battle too for men, for they are women's children, and we mother them again. Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. And it's that wonderful, wonderful sense that it's not enough simply to meet that basic need for qualification. It's that commitment that we need to make to enrich culture.
Absolutely.
And we enrich culture not by fearing development and innovation. We enrich culture by embracing it and holding true to that tradition and that value. And I just thought that was wonderful. Your homework, go home, listen to that. If you don't watch the movie, just buy it. 99p off iTunes. It'll make you cry and it'll make your heart.
Yeah, made me cry. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, Stephen, tonight's been wonderful, but I've never come across anybody who has been so relaxed and so comfortable in their own skin when they're speaking, so at ease with themselves, able to make me soar and think and have a whole new view on how we can move forward, looking up at the high mast and exceeding potential. So thanks so much for that.